Lisa and Robyn are two fun friends diving deep into conversations where nothing is taboo. They believe in eating dessert before dinner and wearing the bikini. They're allergic to labels, authority, and cheap shoes. Currently, they're launching themselves through life being the good time, bold enough to take risks and inquisitively asking, what's next? They hail from New Hampshire, but they could be anywhere dressed in cute clothes. If they had to share a tombstone, it would read, "Curiosity killed these cats." Your hosts, Lisa and Robyn on the mic.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the second hour of Lisa and Robyn on the mic. You are listening on WSMN, 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live, as well as Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. We are talking about how we don't like the word balance, how we like all kinds of other words or ideas to express the fact that life is one big, huge, chaotic
mess.
And
life is
how do
messy.
how do we navigate that, and the pressures from the outside and the expectations that our lives are in balance, our work life is in balance, that our marriages are balanced, that our relationships are balanced, and I just think it's hogwash.
I think it's impossible.
It's a horrible word.
An impossible thing to try to obtain, and I feel like we spend so much time chasing it.
Yes.
Instead, what we should do is prioritize.
Yes.
It's funny. I opened my old notebook and it folded to the forgiveness necessary restoring peace.
Oh, yeah. Because I was thinking that, this time of year, I think about the word forgiveness a lot, and how I was saying that I think it's become sort of a religious word instead of an everyday secular word. And I think of that more for forgiving ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, how many times in a day you're like, I wish I didn't do that. Or I wish I reacted a little differently to that. You've got to forgive yourself.
Too many to count. Yes.
Like, oh, I was in a mood just then.
But the thing is, I read this last week. And I read it on here. The more that you learn about yourself and your trauma is the more that you can see and recognize in other people. Forgot where I was going with that. What it's making me aware of is how you talk to me is how you talk to yourself. And that is what I'm under. And how you talk to the world, how you talk to the bank teller, or how you grumble at somebody in the, sitting in traffic. That's inside of you. That energy is inside of you.
And where does that voice come from? So that's a really interesting topic. There was this Dr. Peter Attia. He was on a podcast, and he was talking about how he spoke to himself so harshly. He would never speak to anyone outside the way he spoke to himself.
Yes.
And he actually went to a place where they help you rewire so that the language that you're using to yourself.
Yes.
To handle things, because he had the opposite. He was really nice to everyone outside, but awful to himself.
Yeah.
For example, like he was shooting a bow and arrow and he had a really bad day, and he said what the practice that he had gone through, I don't know if it was a coaching place or whatever, or if he went through a therapy or something, but he said he had to learn what would he say if a friend,
if it were happening to someone else.
And then he would say what he would say to a friend, but what do you say to yourself? And then he went through the two examples. And we can be very harsh and nasty and negative to ourselves. And sometimes that's not even our voice. It's voices of other people.
Yes. And
did you ever have a negative voice in your head?
Oh, yeah.
A nasty voice?
Yes.
Was it yours?
I still do. Actually, that's a good question. Yes, I do. I think it was mine.
Okay.
Well, I think, but it's the way someone else made me feel. It's the way that not knowing. Well, it comes from a place of allowing someone to tell you who you are, or being open, being seen. So what I mean is, in my first marriage, my self-image, I gave that away. So whatever my first husband told me, I believed was true about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that about like my mom and my dad. And, and my mom and dad didn't grow up saying ugly words to each other. They didn't call each other names.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody called me a name, I thought they must mean it. Because I just was not used to that. And so
Interesting.
So it was my head. So it is kind of a voice of everybody, but I feel like I predominantly heard one of the having children. If you have children, you should definitely learn it then.
Mm-hmm.
The second place I learned it was in golf, where I became aware of it. And when I say in kids is somebody said to me years ago, never lose sight that you're raising children. Let them be kids, but never lose sight of the fact that you're raising a woman and you're raising a man.
Yeah, they could have to be adults at some point.
And I took that weight. I have a heavy responsibility on me. I have a duty to shape this child to be a woman, a man, to be productive in society, to be polite in society, like to be out into the world. So they're always watching me. So I was very careful about don't body shame me no matter how I felt. Like I would joke around, make a joke about it because I'm sarcastic. So I would take my insecurities and say something
funny.
Silly. But then I thought about, no, I don't want her looking at herself like that. I don't want them to feel that way. So it taught me a little bit. Then going through a divorce, it was like, oh, it helps me actually find out who I am, where my boundaries are, those different things. And then golf, I was listening to myself, and like if I hit a crappy shot, I would just be negative to myself. And that's where I was most aware of it. And I'm like, I'm doing that all the time. If I drop something and it's like, I'm beating myself up. So now I'll say, I don't even know if I can say it on the radio. I say the cuss word for pee. I was like, oh,
Yeah, that's not one of the 7 deadly. You could say piss.
Oh, yeah. So my thing is, if I do something wrong, I'm like, oh, piss.
Yeah.
And the kids are like, where'd that come from? I'm like, I have no idea. But
Right.
it actually came from, I'm trying to reframe my language.
A conscious decision to say something that's not upsetting you.
Yes. And not be like out of the gate, because I do have a little bit of a potty mouth. I like to cuss. I do.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do. I don't have a ton of vices. So swearing is one of them.
Yes.
I do like that.
I do too. I don't even know why.
I use it appropriately. I have the right context.
Yes.
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 And I love when little kids, you're not supposed to like when little kids swear, but when they do and they get the
Oh my God,
context right, you're like,
yes.
oh,
Yes.
I'm not supposed to laugh, but.
High five, buddy. This month.
Because I remember when I was young, that was like a street city thing to do when, people would say rude things to a young girl, for example,
yes,
right?
yes.
And then I would be like, F off.
Yeah.
And they'd go, ooh, you kiss your mama with that mouth?
Yeah.
And it was like, you just said the rudest thing to me.
Right.
And you don't like that I said something rude back to
Right.
you? I'd say it again.
Do you kiss your mama with that mouth?
Right, right. And so that was like a big thing where, oh, such bad words coming out of such a pretty mouth. And it's like, you were just saying some nasty stuff. And now you don't like that I stood up. And that made me want to do it more.
Right.
That made these words way more powerful than they were.
Yes.
So that was like the little city street in me.
Well, and it's funny, like they immediately turn it right back on you.
Oh, yeah.
They turn it right back on you and like, wait, did you just realize like you are judging and aware of my behavior, but are you aware of how you're showing up right
and
now?
I'm talking street, city street in the 70s and 80s when, I'll give you the sweet equivalent of what was being said. You got to fry with those shakes.
Yes.
Yes. That's the type of thing that was being said.
Yes. Derogatory.
And then it was sexual in nature or something. And then you turn around and you're...
It's like a piece of meat.
Yeah. And you turn around and, hey, F off. And it's like, hey, you kiss your mama with that mouth. It's like,
yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to bite you with this mouth.
Yes.
That's what I'm going to do. Get away from me.
What were we talking about right before we left? We had to bring that one back into the break. I was talking about yin and yang and
Oh, yes.
anxiety.
Oh, I'll bring this and then hopefully it jogs your memory. We heard a really annoying or not annoying, upsetting statistic that something like close to almost 50% of young girls between 20 and 30 are on antidepressants in the United States. And we started talking about like, what is the problem? Why are young girls so unhappy? And then that kind of came around into the idea that maybe it's a balance thing. Maybe they are thrown. So there is more women represented in college and higher education than any other time in history. Your daughter, her dental school is at least 3/4 women.
Yeah.
Than men.
Yeah.
Right? We can be, we just had a woman run for president. We have a woman vice president. We have women Supreme Court judges. We have doctors that are like, women have in the United States.
There's nothing that women cannot do. We can actually
Why
even
are we
turn
so
ourselves
unhappy?
into a man.
Right. We can even
actually get a penis. We can actually get a penis.
That's how many rights we have.
And we're still not happy.
And we're still not happy. And why is that?
Right.
And then I was like, that's kind of made me think about the conversation about balance, that maybe there's too many options. You can do anything and everything, and you should be doing everything.
Because I think we're so busy looking out about what we should be and who we should be instead of going in and being like, who do I want to be? Because you even say that, women are... Like when you go out somewhere and you're definitely dressing up. Like you're dressing up because you want to be seen. In, like say you're going to dress up and you're going to go to the bar. 9 times out of 10, if you're really truthful about it, you're not dressing for the men. You're dressing the women. You know that the women are all going to check you out. Mm-hmm. We're all checked. We are so judgmental.
Well, they say men are visual. Women are visual too.
Women are visual, but yes, but you know that when you walk in and you know that you look good, you know that people are like, they're looking at you to like tear you down or, they're stacking. And this is what I said to my daughter when she was worried about her self-image. And like, there were times where, adolescence and puberty that were awkward and were awkward stages, and she would like cover herself and I'm like, no, you're so beautiful, and she's like, but Kelly this or so and so this and so this, and I'm like, but you're taking what you see as a flaw in you and you're comparing it to what you see as beautiful in somebody else. I think that's a lot of the reason why we're not happy as I was going to say species.
I was wondering if some of it had to do with the onset of social media, like the increase. Because women do have, I think men have some component of it where they're judging themselves against their peers in some way. They probably do it with money and status more than looks.
Yes.
But maybe they do it in looks. Maybe there's men running around going, so-and-so has 6-pack abs and I don't have 6-pack abs.
True.
Maybe. Because we're...
Well, you're not talking about the 60% dad bods. You're like, hey man, his gut's better. His beer belly is bigger than mine. I got to get on that.
Right. But women do have a competitiveness that people don't talk about very much.
No.
There's you don't have it with your daughter, but I've seen a lot of moms be competitive with their daughters.
Really?
Yes.
Like competitive in what way?
I think they're either wanting their kid to have an opportunity they didn't have, and they feel like they're wasting it because they're not using it in the way they would have used it if they had it at the time. Everything from a look component to anything.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of firsthand. I know a lot of women who they wouldn't say that they did, but there's some element of jealousy in that with their daughters. And I also think it's the passage of time of like passing the torch to, I used to be the one walking down the street getting attention. Now the attention goes to my daughter.
Yeah.
I do think there's a little bit of that too that no one ever talks about.
Yeah, I don't feel like that. I don't.
No, you definitely don't have that in your relationship.
I was like, wow, like going through my Rolodex and like thinking about like mom, daughter, like relationships that we have. But you're right. I think you're, looking back at some of my kids' friends and their relationships with their mothers. Yeah, I think so. Like, we're always judging.
So when you say the thing about going to a bar that other women are going to look at you negatively, there is a...
it's that cattiness. Like, is she prettier than me?
Yes. Yeah. And we
Are her
talked
boobs
about
bigger? Is her
Yes.
butt better?
Right. Right. There is a cattiness.
Do you see, like, we're checking out, like when you walk on the beach, like sitting on the beach, how many times I guarantee you there's not one woman that does not see another woman walking down the beach, like checking out how much cellulite she's got, if she's got, what she looks like in her bathing suit, what size her boobs are, does she have wrinkles? Does she get Botox? Does she do this? Does she have a tan? Does she have freckles? We are very critical.
And it's almost like we're conditioned to do it because we understand that we're in competition.
Yeah.
Where I think men are in competition as well, but I think they're a competition for money and status.
Yes.
And ours is our looks.
Yeah.
I think
so.
But back to the whole balance and harmony piece of it. So there's something going on with women that, especially at that young age between 20 and 30, that you feel the need to medicate this feeling of not good enough. And maybe it's not just not good enough, and I don't know if it's partially because the access to the medicine is so much more. Every single drug commercial that's all the commercials are on television.
Do you know there's only a few countries in this world that are pharmaceutical commercials are legal?
Right. So
and we're one of them.
The other day there was this one Rinvox. It says, ask your doctor about Rinvox. And there's like 3 people just standing watching a sunset. I'm like, what is this for?
I know, you can't
even tell what it's for. And then I said, it is,
and they read all the bad stuff so fast.
And it's VOQ, and I was saying it as like VOX. And then I said it wrong again, and I'm like, you go to your doctor and ask for a rim job? I'm like, what is this? Like, what kind of Rincox, Rinvox? Like, how do I say the Q at the end? Like, what is this as a drug? But maybe the onset of giving women, the minute women, maybe, and I will say this happened in my medical journey. So when I was complaining about my heart for 5 years before I had my heart event, right? So, and I was constantly told I was depressed. I was told it was menopause. I was told it was this. I was told it was that. And then finally, when I kept complaining year after year about the same thing, they go, well, you're probably depressed. I'll write you a And I'm like, I said, I'm sure because I haven't slept now for 3 years, I'm probably depressed.
Right.
Because lack of sleep will make you feel depressed and unmotivated.
Yes.
But that's not the original thing that I came to you for.
Right.
So maybe it's just we love to push antidepressants on women because when women are verbal processors, a lot of us are verbal processors, and we have to get it out.
Well, you don't have. So
as we're complaining, people are just like, oh, I can fix this. Let me give you a antidepressant. Instead of saying, maybe this person needs to just verbalize, what the problem really is. Because how many times do you think you're upset about something, and when you talk about it, you're like, oh, I'm actually upset about this thing.
Yeah.
It's not even really the original thing that I thought I was upset about.
Right.
And it's because I'm a verbal processor. I have to get all of this out to figure out how I feel about it.
Yes. And once you hear it,
verbalized.
Verbal processors have to hear it out loud or have to hear it saying like, wait, that didn't sound right coming out of my mouth. Like,
and that's not what I meant.
My thoughts and my words did not. So that's why I'm like, oh, what's that word? I can't, trying to find, because you don't really know.
Coherence too. Is everything aligned? And when you say it out loud, you're like, that's not really, you're trying to get everything back into the line. So maybe women are given more antidepressants because they're verbalizing everything.
Yeah. But I also think we don't teach coping skills. We don't teach how to find harmony, peace in ourselves. It's either you shove it down, like the stress, or you shove it down. And like even thinking about kids in school, how many times can they actually really come to their teacher and have a genuine conversation?
Yeah, there's probably no room for that.
Or just saying, I'm really struggling with this. I'm really struggling. I don't understand why I didn't have my grade. Instead of like, you're still the student and I'm the teacher, and they're going to hold that role. Now, my kids did have a better experience. They went to a cooperative school, and the teachers were a lot more open to communicate. Like they were teaching kids, they were actively teaching kids to how to better communicate. But there were still some in there that like, nope, I'm the superior and you did this wrong. Instead of actually helping somebody work through the problem, we're not teaching our kids, and we're not. How many times have somebody taught us how to work through something? So if we don't work through it ourselves, it doesn't get solved. And how many times do we actually sit down and like work through the problem?
Yeah, and I think we're always trying to learn coping skills and life skills.
Yeah.
And I think that's the sooner you learn your lessons in that, the more
Yes.
successful you can be over
Yeah.
time. But if you're still like, think about the person that says the mean thing when they're drinking.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to say with drinking
Yeah.
too, because a lot of people don't say mean things, but the minute you give them alcohol,
Yeah.
it's like, this is why we don't like when you drink.
Yeah. It's like you just lost that little filter, that little line that was holding, you were just holding the line.
Yeah, that says, hey, I don't say this out loud. I say this to my
Right.
friend.
Right.
But I don't say this out loud, and how old do you have to be to learn that, hey, maybe I give it a rest with drinking in these scenarios, or maybe,
Yeah.
but the thing is,
But the thing is, the rage is still there, or
Yes.
the
Yes.
ugliness is still there. It's just now that you've had alcohol and it's lowered your, I don't know, inhibitions.
Mhm.
It's lowered, it's weakened your muscle. So now
you
you're
have less impulse control. You have less impulse control when you're
Yes.
drinking. So the impulse to say the mean thing, you can normally keep that in check because that's kind of mean.
right.
Kind of crossing the line right there. Well, it's not there.
And how long is somebody going to stand? How long are you going to allow that person to emote? I even said to somebody the other day, try to separate fact from feeling. Because a lot of times what happens is what comes out of the mouth, you don't even know. You get to a point of that you're so upset or you're so angry. It's just emotions coming out of your mouth. You don't even know the words that you're speaking because you don't realize the damage that you're doing. And sometimes you can't ever come back from that, ever.
Well, I know a lot of people go, oh, those are only words, and I'm sorry, whatever. It's like, yeah, but if you continue to say the words that you always have to apologize for later, you must mean them at some point, or
Right.
you're just a sore loser,
Yes.
and you have to have the fight in which you're mean because you don't have any other fight
Or
in
you're
you.
just rolling around.
You
You're
don't have any other fight in
Yeah.
you. You want to make a point?
You're rolling around in your trauma and you want somebody else to get that. You want somebody else to be in that emotion with you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not ever healthy because that's going to just be an argument.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's almost like them displaying it. It's like you're trying to get it out, but you're taking it out on someone else. What did I write? You said it yesterday.
Oh, taking accountability and taking responsibility are not the same thing.
You said taking accountability for yourself is different than blaming yourself.
Right.
I turned it into, I said taking blame for something isn't the same thing as taking accountability for something. Blame is a feeling, accountability is an action.
Yes.
So you can say, well, I own that, or I did it, my fault.
Mm-hmm.
My fault, I apologize. To me, those are just words.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking the blame for it. You're taking the supposed responsibility for it, but you're not taking accountability because accountability is action.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hold myself accountable. Number one, change going forward. I'm going to hold myself accountable. Hold yourself to a standard that you're not going to do it, or I'm going to apologize, and then my actions are going to show. See, I think your words and your actions have to be aligned.
Right. And sometimes they are. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they aren't. And no one's going to be perfect at a balance of that. But I was thinking, I don't know, maybe it was 10 or 12 years ago, I started getting these text messages. It was like 11 o'clock at night from a family member. And they were pontificating and they don't understand me and like some why. And the first thing I thought was, oh, what are you on your third drink?
Yeah.
And now you've got the
It's
gonads.
after 6.
You've got the gonads to now say whatever it is that
Right.
you want to say.
Yeah.
And it's inappropriate.
This ain't Free Willy.
First of all, never while you're drinking.
Right.
especially not via text.
Yes.
You want to have a normal conversation and you want to hash out some of these things. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
But I am not engaging while you're drinking and while it's 11 o'clock at night and via text message. I can't stand text message so much that there's 50% of the time when people text me, I just call them. I'm like, what are we doing?
I know.
What is this long-winded thing?
I like text message because I know that I can get, if I pick up the phone or I get on the phone, it's going to be another hour. It's going to be 2 hours. And I'm going to be, and I'm like, I got to get this. I got to get this done. I got to get this done. But in some of it just doesn't. And lately, like, so if somebody's in the car with me, like.
For you telling me that you think that I have abandoned whatever, that's not a text message. I'm running 15 minutes late. That's a text message.
Right.
You feel I've abandoned you because of the last fight we had at your house. Not text message material.
You know it's long when the text message says read more ... and you're like, oh geez.
When it gets broken up because even the box isn't big enough anymore.
Yes.
Yeah. So don't do that at the holidays.
Yes.
Don't do that anytime.
New
Year's resolution. I will give you a New Year's resolution.
All right, what is it?
Don't text things that need to be conversations.
Yes, there you go. But I also think I challenge everybody to be more self-aware. Like talking about the argument, about that somebody's not going to take the bait. And when you do is like, see, it goes back to what I was saying about when you start seeing the traumas and start healing traumas in you and being aware of your own pitfalls. And when I say traumas, the things that bump you, stop you, that get you irritated, that create resistance in you, irritation, anger,
So I'll give a
aggression,
perfect
blah, blah,
example
blah.
of one. Okay. I have abandonment issues. I personally have abandonment issues. And anything that feels like anything close to that feeling.
Yes.
Abandonment is.
But you start behaving a certain way.
You immediately.
When that's triggered.
I would immediately resort right back to that all or nothing, like catastrophic failure.
Yes.
It's a catastrophic failure.
Because
at that point.
It creates that feeling in you. So you've been triggered.
I hate that word.
Your trauma's triggered. Trigger trauma. That's my T-shirt.
Trigger trauma.
I'm a trigger trauma. I love it. No, but when you start recognizing those things about yourself, you can start seeing in other people when they start behaving a certain way. Then you can start seeing it, and it's like the person in the argument, and they're not going to text you back. You're not going to text them back, and they want you to engage, so they keep. They
say meaner. They try to touch that, like, you know what's gonna get her to F me off right here. She's gonna, if I say this,
and if you don't take the bait, and it's like
it gets worse.
It gets worse, and it gets worse until you're like, okay, shots fired, let's go.
Right.
Makes my palms sweaty, like because you're only human, in as much as you are down the road of personal development and awareness.
This is why I don't come over for dinner.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly this whole thing. See this exchanged?
Right.
You did all by yourself?
Yes.
That's the exact reason why I don't come over anymore. And
people don't think that like hey.
They don't think they don't think they're complicit in the reason why.
Right.
You like to throw that at me. Right? You XYZ. And why do I XY? Why don't I communicate? Why don't I respond to text messages?
Why are you not my friend anymore?
Yeah.
Well, and it's always about blaming, like, well, you did this. And it's never a self-awareness of like, wait, maybe I don't return their phone calls, or maybe I am rude and inconsiderate. Maybe I do stand them up.
Maybe I try to trash talk their spouse in front of them.
Right. Maybe I say really nasty things, maybe I say really nasty things. And now, like, they don't want to, we don't ever want to look in the mirror and be like, wow, what did I do? How am I complicit in this person not wanting to be around me anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how come I don't get the invites?
Right.
Well, how are you showing up?
Right. And then sometimes we take Christmas and Thanksgiving are notorious for this.
Yes.
Okay, people, your kids are growing up. They spend your kids are going to spend holidays over here, whatever. Some point they're going to spend holidays with their significant others.
Yes.
Right? Families and stuff. And then it becomes you don't want to spend time with us. And it's like, well,
I will never do that.
Yeah,
Ever.
I think that's really important because there is this, and I even came up and I said one time, we can just have Thanksgiving on Friday.
Yeah.
You can do stuff with that family, and we can do stuff on a different day.
Yeah.
Like, I will celebrate whenever I, like, even the bond of the calendar isn't doing this for me. I even
Right.
started it with my birthday. My birthday falls on a Wednesday, and nobody wants to party with me on a Wednesday. Then my birthday's Saturday.
Right.
All day.
Right. You hold on to this date, years ago, and I hope she doesn't get mad at me. So our kids were little, and the reason I know I'm confident that I won't do it, well, unless I get senile. But I think that I have a relationship with my kids that they'll be like, Mom, that's ridiculous.
And you'll
Stop.
You'll listen. Okay.
You're being spoiled. Stop.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, we actually even started talking about it because our daughter's in a long-term relationship and, they're going to get married. And at some point she's like, they're trying to now blend their Christmases together and still holidays and stuff. And, she's like, at some point we're going to be doing it together. And she's like, would you guys be open to doing whatever? And I'm like, no, we could have the in-laws come over. We can all do, a dinner together or however it works out. Or we do breakfast and you do dinner, or, we go do dessert and it changes off. And I remember Mike being little, like we traveled everywhere until our kids hit 3. And then I'm like, nope, it is time for Santa to come to our house. We're going to start our own traditions. You're more than welcome to come here. But when we did travel, like we would do Thanksgiving in Maine, and then the next year we would do Thanksgiving in North Carolina. And with kids, it's expensive. And, now you're looking at $800 a flight per person. And I'm like, for 4 people to fly down for Thanksgiving, that's really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up going down to my mom's the beginning of Thanksgiving, beginning of November one year. Kids are little. And somebody had said, and she put on the whole spread, and somebody at the table, an aunt or somebody, she was like, well, they're saying grace. Mom prayed over the meal and everything. We're getting ready to sit down. And she's like, well, it's not really Thanksgiving because it's not Thanksgiving Day. And I'm like, I cringed. I cringed. And I remember like the battle of like, well, you guys are always over there and you're always over here and you're always over there. And like, I never get to see my sister. Like we never get to have, now that we're adults and we're moms, we never get to have sister time. And so we went out and boy, did we get grief when we came back, husbands. And like, we went out to dinner and did some Christmas shopping and it's like, how do you mean? Like, you said you were going to watch the kids, and now all of a sudden you didn't tell me before I left that I had to be home in 3 hours or 2 hours.
Right.
I mean, and we weren't, it wasn't like 2:00 in the morning we were rolling in. It was, we lingered over dinner. We did shopping.
You caught up with your sister that you hadn't seen alone without kids screaming so that you could have a full-blown conversation.
And just be an adult.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I thought the people in my tribe would love me and support me. And so I will never intentionally make my children feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, I want to support you. And even though when their dad is divorced, like I want to support that relationship because it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with their dad and them. And why wouldn't I want my child to have a great relationship with their parent?
Right.
I'll do whatever it takes to support it. And I'm like, I don't get why people are like, get petty and they get pissy about, holidays and like, just think about it for yourself. Like, why does this upset me?
Yeah. So I think about this a lot. I think, say you get into it with someone and you're like, man, this is exactly why I block people on my phone. This is exactly why I didn't do stuff on social media. Like, I just don't want to get into it. And then it makes you angry because you think it's never good enough.
Yeah.
Right? That is what evokes the feeling in me. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
It's not good enough. You want more, and I'm incapable of making you happy.
Yeah.
And then I think about that for like 28 hours.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm in that mode. I'm in that almost like a Grinch mode where I'm not now. not only would I not go over and above, I'm not even giving you, like the more you ask, the more I don't want to give it to you. And then I have to say, when I feel better, and it's usually 2 sleeps later, not that next morning sleep,
right?
The next morning after that sleep. I need like 15 hours, and since I never get 8 hours anymore, I need 2 days. Then I think they're just saying they need to feel seen, heard, and loved.
Yeah.
And I must not be doing my part in making them feel.
But it's also not your job.
But sometimes I agree. Sometimes it is not my job. And sometimes I'm doing the best I can and it's not good enough for you. And then that's not my problem.
Yes.
But if I could give you a little bit more, maybe I need to give you a little bit more.
Well, I feel like you have a duty. So here's my life hack. So I actually think my word has picked me for next year.
Oh, good.
So I was on a podcast the other day with a friend of ours, Rob, who wrote a book about legacy. Literally, he was in marketing and ran multiple people's.
Is this the Fearless podcast?
No, this is, what's Rob's, I'll have to look it up, the podcast. Anyway, so he wrote a book, and he writes books, and he helps people write their books, and he has done their social media marketing. He's like, done all their posts and like
promotions.
He runs all their social medias, and so when he got on, he's like, hey, I got rid of everybody. I fired all of my employees, and now I'm just doing the books. So he's doing the social media. It's all gone because it's such a drain. It's such a hassle. Even just trying to do it for yourself is a mess. So his book is called Legacy. And I said, well, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? And so we were talking, and the legacy that I want to leave behind, and I think it is when I die, or when I'm not here, or even when I'm here and somebody thinks of me, I hope they smile. I hope they laugh. I hope they snarf their drink. And so I hope it's a good memory. And Chris had said something about, he was like, well, that's kind of, what did he say? That's so arrogant. And I'm like, it's actually not, because it's what it is. It's forcing me to say, I am being present and being aware of how I'm showing up. And it's being whether I want to be a faucet, not a drain. And people will realize that they don't want to be, we get stuck. We get stuck in something. So if I'm thinking about what I'm constantly leaving behind, I'm being present and I'm being intentional about how I'm showing up. And so I think it does help you. I think it makes you think twice about what you're going to say next or how you're going to show up. And so I think that's a long way to get around to legacy. But I'm like, I do want that. I want to leave that behind.
Right. And I think other people think of legacy as like, I'm going to leave this building behind or this park behind, right? And they think of it as a tangible thing, and they will be remembered in this way that they, I know someone who, had a little bit of money, and they said, so I want all this money to handle futures of dealing with things. I worked with this woman in the lending world, and she left a legacy behind to help unwanted animals.
Yes.
Abandoned animals. And she, everything that she was doing was to, and that's how we sort of bonded, because when you meet a bunch of real estate people, you're like, okay, we have this commonality of real estate, but we really might not be the same people. And once we latched on to the animal thing, we realized, we're kind of the same person here. But she, she wanted to, she dedicated her life to that, helping animals here, helping the shelters, helping, anything having to do with animals and their human interactions, good human interactions. And she even did that in her death. She left her money to, the Humane Society and these various other charities that help animals.
Yeah.
And there's, we know we're not going to be here forever.
Right.
But I am proof that my parents lived.
Right, but if I just said, a name right now, or if you're just driving down the road and you think about somebody's name, you immediately have a feeling.
Yes.
Immediately. I don't want to be remembered as like, oh, she was always fussing about traffic, or she was always complaining about this, or she was always growling about this, or it was always yelling or always snapping. And like, no, I want to be remembered like, I was a very picky eater growing up, and we did not eat fast food very often. And I hated McDonald's hamburgers because of the stupid, nasty little onions on it. To this day, I will not eat a hamburger from McDonald's that has onions on it. Like, I'm still picking them off like I'm two. But so I would want the French fries, and literally like Hardee's was right down the road, or Hardee's was the first stop. Can we stop at both? No, you could never stop at more. So when we would go out, sometimes my kids would be like, I'm like, hey, do you guys want to go get McDonald's French fries? And we'll go get Five Guys.
Yes.
So a lot of times we'll go get Five Guys and then go and hit, I think Preston's there now.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would get that. And I'm like, no, that's fine. I'm totally cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because why not?
Mm-hmm.
It's no
Yes,
more.
you will be, your legacy is why not both?
It's not, right.
Why not both? Why do we have to choose between two things we like? Why can't we have both things that we like?
Right. And it's really, in the whole scheme of things, is it really that much time out of your, like, I can see the golden arches from Hardee's right there. Like, we can right there.
That's part of the no mentality. Some people just want no because they don't want, for whatever their reason too, but there is sometimes some people don't want to make some people happy.
Yeah. See, I don't like to say no. I don't like to say no. I like to see if it.
But you're not a people pleaser.
But if I no, but
I think you have a good balance of that. Speaking of the word balance, I think you have a good understanding that I say yes whenever I can say yes, but I need to say no when I need to say no.
Yeah, I don't like to say no. If I know that a no is coming from me, like if I feel like I can't make it work, I try to make it work. Like, let's try to be accommodating, because why not?
Mm-hmm.
I don't, if it's something that I outright do not want to do, or like I feel like I've got a pretty good understanding of my boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, yeah, this is possible, this isn't possible.
Yeah. I think about it when it comes to, feeding people. Having food withheld from you is such a fundamentally basic foundation for your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not Gandhi. We're not walking around skinny in a robe, just drinking water and prancing, whatever. We all need something to eat. In the act of withholding food or withholding food you want or you like, I think that's actually a very telling thing.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a very telling thing. Some people don't care about food. Like, they'll eat whatever. They'll eat something in the bag. They'll eat cereal for dinner or whatever. I'm not those people. I'm not one of those people.
See, I would pig out on fast food if I could.
If I could live on nothing but fast food, I would eat nothing but fast food. My whole entire growing life was on fast food.
Yes.
Totally.
And SpaghettiOs. That is fast food.
Yes. Yeah.
But, yes, there are times, and I do feel like I do have to, like, I hold the line because and maybe sometimes my line is too hard with it because I don't eat fast food very often, but sometimes you're just craving for it and you're like, yes, I just want to pig out on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, because I used to we would go down south and they didn't have Arby's and they didn't have Chick-fil-A. And we'd go down to North Carolina and I would go and get an Arby's beef and cheddar, a big one. And then I would go and get a number 1 chicken sandwich with a large fry and a shake at Chick-fil-A. And I'd eat it all. My mom was like, where are you putting that? Well, you get into like your 30s and you're like, can't do that anymore.
Right. Yeah, but I think there is something foundationally about wanting to make someone happy with food and not, like, specifically not making them happy.
Yes.
So if someone says, I like to have the 6-pack of whatever in the house, and you just will not bring them a 6-pack in the house.
Right.
Or they really whatever brand of ice cream, and you're like, no.
See, I think
I'm getting Breyers. It's $2.99.
Food is so important to me.
It is to me too.
And food is, and I don't like. If I know my people are going to be home, I want to feed them. I want to feed them. That is my gift, and And so when I feel like there's sometimes, when people like don't appreciate your gift, then the gift goes away, and then you're like, well, you don't ever do it anymore. Wonder why?
You don't appreciate it in the way that I'm giving it. So it's one thing like
you don't realize the work and the effort of going into it. And, I mean, listen to a couple the other day and he's like, all I do, and you mentioned it earlier, all I do is I work. And, there's so many times that people, especially if you have one person that works outside of the home and then you have a person that works in the home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say stay at home because you rarely stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 vacuums. We have the 3 little Roombas in our house, and yet I'm still vacuuming every day. And, Chris walked by and he's like, I am so grateful. I literally just put the vacuum away. And he's like, I'm so grateful for those vacuum cleaners. I'm like, I know, we've got 4.
One of them is me.
He's like, what? I'm like, yes. Do you know how many times I vacuum over top of those guys? But anyway. But talking about negotiations and talking about contracts and talking about being in a relationship.
And expectations.
Expectations and a lot of times they have that expectation. Like I've heard it said, and, somebody was arguing about it the other day. Her philosophy, he's like, well, I'm the breadwinner. I bust my butt every day to bring home, so you can go and, so you can go do this. And so you can do this. And so you can stay at home and do this stuff. But at the same time, do you not understand all the stuff is going in? Like you never have to think about whether you're going to run out of toilet paper, or you never have to think about having deodorant or
what you're going to eat for dinner, or hitting the supermarket.
Always having clean laundry, or like, and I actually was thinking, and I said, I would actually love to wake up in the morning and just being able, have my coffee at leisure. And then my belly's hungry. And somebody asked me, hey, are you hungry? And all I have to do is sit at the table. I'm like,
amazing.
That is a miracle right there. I'm actually, I actually get a little bit jealous of like, everybody's just sitting there lounging around. And I'm like, okay, I got pancakes dinner here. I'm doing the pancakes here. Now I've got the convection on like 100, like it goes down to 115 is the lowest that I can get it. So I can keep the pancakes warm because I can't make a mess of pancakes and do eggs all at the same time. And you have them all fresh. So it's like a orchestra in there. Like, you have no idea the mental capacity, that it takes
gymnastics
in order to feed more than one person.
And I even think the mental gymnastics to come up with something that everyone wants to eat.
Yes.
Because what is everyone in the mood for?
Yes.
And that's 50% of the time of why I just want to eat at my house. Like even when people are like, where should we go to eat? In my head, I think I just want to eat at my house. Because agreeing on a place to eat for a group of people
is a nightmare.
Is a nightmare. And I don't know why, because everyone has a mood.
Yes.
I'm not in the mood for that. I had that for lunch, whatever, right? So sometimes, that's why when we were going skiing last year, I'm like, just come to my house, just meet at my house.
Yeah.
Just meet at my house. I'll make chicken parm. It'll be a warm, filling meal that has carbohydrates so that we can ski afterwards.
Yes.
But it was just like, because I just didn't want to do the crappy food at the place, or trying to find a restaurant ahead of time, and then I didn't know what my stomach.
Not really any restaurants between here and
Crotchet.
Yes.
Yeah, there wasn't. I didn't know what their food was like there, so I didn't want to test food for the first time, and so it's so funny. But how many times I want to just cook because I'm like, I'll just make something.
Yeah.
It'll just be easier.
Yeah.
Than than the restaurant gymnastics.
Yes.
And I think that there's so much mental gymnastics in trying to figure out what to eat when we already had that, or I'm not in the mood for that.
Anytime you add another person into the mix, you always have the potential for friction.
And their allergies and their moods and desires and what they eat for lunch.
Yes.
And then how do you balance that?
Yes.
I hate that word.
Harmony.
Yeah.
That's why you got go to an all-you-can-eat buffet. It's got something for everybody. Except I hate a buffet.
I hate buffets.
I was just saying, but then when you go to the restaurants that
the
are
only thing I hate more than a
accommodating,
buffet is a potluck. I hate me a potluck.
No potluck.
It's
no
all
potluck,
mac
no buffet.
salads and brownies, or mac salads and chips, dips, mac salads and brownies or chocolate chip cookies. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's like and none of it goes together. None of the flavors go together.
But every time you go to, if you go to it, you're most likely the time where you can get a variety of a menu. It's a chain restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really want, I don't really like chain restaurants.
Yeah, I'm not a chain restaurant person. I mean, I do like some chains, but.
Yeah,
If
but
I-
for the most part, it's not like I mean, there's not a steakhouse around that we can go and get a steak as decent. And I feel like, I mean, I love Italian, so Italian's usually kind of safe, but I make it good at home.
You're right.
So
I don't need to spend $45.
I
on-
eliminate the places myself going because I'm like,
Yeah.
we can
I
make that better at home. We
Yes.
can make that better at home.
That's one of the things about being a good cook at home is like
Yeah.
now you have to find something that you like out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to eat the food that I eat at home, but I want somebody else to do it for
To
me.
make it for me. Yeah.
See how women are just so complicated?
That's why we're on antidepressants all the time. You can't just. What are we complaining about now?
Right.
What are we complaining about now?
Right. What are you unhappy about?
And just know
No.
that we don't need antidepressants.
You can be the
50% of the
president
time.
and you can have your own penis.
Yeah, you can not even be a woman anymore if you don't want.
Right.
Oh, I would never not want to be a woman.
Me either.
I love my
It's
verbal
crazy and it's fun.
processing.
It's frustrating, crazy, and fun. But yes, I love our clothes. I love girls' clothes. Like we have so many more options. We have so much more, gadgets and trinkets and things.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Could you imagine if we started a makeup line for men? Cosmetics. Because really, I mean, it could have gone either way. Like when makeup started out, who
Oh my God, could you see
Who
my
invented
spouse
it?
with eyeliner on?
them brows, lipstick, a little bit of blush. These
Oh
all
my
hockey players and
goodness.
he's a blush. And they got the big old strokes, where they don't blend it in, and it's just this big old whoosh.
Oh my goodness.
But literally, it could have gone either way.
could have
it
gone
could have
either
been
way.
men were like, yeah, we're going to do makeup too.
British men wore those wigs for their jury processes. When they were doing judge stuff,
Oh my
they
God,
wore the wigs.
who came up with that idea too?
I don't know.
And the pantaloons, the little puffy,
I
the
was
little
just thinking
puffy
pantaloons
knickers.
and those slight heels on the shoe with a buckle.
Oh my gosh. So we're watching My Lady Jane. It's so cute. So cute. But the men have these bloomers. They end at the knee and they poof out. But then there's a section, a cloth section that has it's like a penis
A
that's
cup?
sewed onto it. No, it's actually like a penis. It's
Oh.
a cloth penis. It's like,
What is
and I was
this
like,
called?
why do they do that? My Lady Jane.
Okay, I'm going to have to look it up.
We'll Google it.
We'll go.
We'll Google the cloth velvet penis. I know I say that. But it's who came up with it and said that was a good idea?
Right. I don't know.
We're done.
We're done. We're going to end on velvet penis.
She
This
didn't-
Thursday. This Thursday.
Well, so maybe next Thursday we can try again about talking about anxiety and depression and letting go. But actually, you can let go. Be aware. Be a blessing. Be curious.
Until
and be
next time.
charming.
Yeah, always be charming. Until next week, you are listening on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. Robyn and Lisa on the mic.